Okay, welcome to 2.4 Deductive Reasoning. Today we're going to be talking about law of detachment and law of syllogism, and how you use those to make a conjecture or a conjecture statement, or lead us to a statement. So first of all is law of detachment. Law of detachment, if P implies Q is true, then if P comes true, then we know Q is going to be true or going to happen. So one I always talk about this one is, let's say the school district has written rule that if it snows 18 inches of snow the day before school, then we will not have school the following day. So that's their P implies Q, snow, no school. Okay, so then some Tuesday night in December we get 20 inches of snow. Well, then because of that statement, we know it's 18 or more inches of snow, then we will not have school the next day, so we know we won't have school on that Wednesday. So the snow came true, so therefore we can conclude we will not have school. Again, don't hold me to that. That's just something I made up. All right. So let's say we have this statement. If you drive from the Canadian border to the U.S., then you'll need to pass through the U.S. Border Patrol. So I probably wrote this one. My wife's from Canada, so we travel and we've been there for a while. We went there last Christmas, so we went up at Christmas and came back weekend before New Year's. So if we came back the weekend before New Year's and we drove from Canada to the U.S., and that's our given, so we drove from Canada to the U.S., what conclusion could we make? And in this case, then me and my family had to pass through the U.S. Border Patrol. Okay, so I'm gonna write that down, but we can talk about that in class if you need to see that one too. Here are some examples too. If two lines intersect, then they intersect at exactly 1 point. So in this where we could say lines L and M intersect. So what conclusion could we make if L and M intersect? Well, then they intersect, and we could say intersect at point T, we'll say. Okay, so that would be a conclusion we could make. So since the two lines intersect, it tells us they intersect. Now, we're not saying, oh, they could be parallel. No, the given is that they intersect each other. So then we can make a conclusion that they intersect at point and a point T. So if a student wants to go to college, then the student must study hard or put in the work with their studies. So we'll say, Jim. We have not too many people called Jim nowadays. Jim wants to go to, what college? Arizona State University, let's say. So Jim wants to go to Arizona State University. So what conclusion can we make? Well, then Jim needs to study hard, if that's possible to study hard, but we get the idea. He needs to put in the work. He needs to make sure he is able to, or conscious of his studies. Okay. Here's the next one, law of syllogism. Law of syllogism is a little confusing on this. I'll also include some videos in Schoology, DirecTV commercials, and we'll talk about those during class. Maybe we'll save them for class too, but I'll let them see it, put them in Schoology, and you can take a look at them. But this is kind of like a chain or kind of a snake event. So if P happens, then we know Q is going to happen, and if Q happens, then we know R is going to happen. Well, if all this happens, kind of see it kind of snakes around law of syllogism. So if P happens, then we know through the snake, we know R is going to happen. So that's what law of syllogism allows us to do in that. So if we take a look at this one, prom, and sometimes you might not make a true statement or not, but here in this case, Selena attends prom, then she'll go with Mark. If Selena goes with Mark, then Donna will go with Albert. So if Selena attends prom, so this is kind of our P statement, then she'll go with Mark. Well, if Selena goes with Mark, then Donna is going to go with Albert. So if Selena will go with Mark is kind of our Q, and then this is a Q, so then we know this is an R statement. So if P implies Q and Q implies R, well, if P happens, then we know R is going to happen. So our conclusion would be if Selena attends prom, then Donna will go with Albert. So P implies R. Here's one, and you already see the right in here, but this is no conclusion. There's nothing that goes together in the statements, like P implies Q, and then there's just this random R statement. So not Q implies R, it's just Peddler's Steakhouse stays open till 10 p.m. Well, there's no rhythm, no connection between them, so there's no conclusion that can be made. So sometimes you'll see that an example that you just might not be able to make a conclusion. So here's some examples. You might want to hit pause to see if you can help work this one out. But if you ride a bus, then you attend school. If you ride a bus, you go to work. Well, both of these are both the same. They're both P's. And then one implies maybe a Q. Attend school is my Q. And then go to school or go to work would be an R. Well, there's no flow to this, and I always say this one, if I see you get on a bus, can I make a conclusion where you're going? No, because you could be going two different places. So there's no conclusion can be made on that one. So again, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I probably shouldn't show you the ones that they don't go. And I think this one in your book is wrong, correct, or in your note packet. Mine, it's mistyped. I apologize for not checking this out before I started this video, but we're going to push through on this. But I believe it says instead of if you get out, or if you ride the bus, it says if you get out of bed. So if you get out of bed, then you go to work. Well, because this statement and then this should also be down here, they're both Q, so P implies Q and Q implies R. So then we can make a conclusion that if your alarm clock goes off in the morning, then you go to work. And again, that was for the other one, so I apologize, that one's confused. So and this one I don't think you have. Oh yeah, you do. So this one, which one is it? Law of syllogism or law of detachment? Well, first I might see if it works. Pythagorean's triple or Pythagorean's theorem. If a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then the sides of a triangle make a right triangle. So in this case, we have this triangle x, y, and z, and for the side lengths, one side squared plus another side squared equals a third side squared. Well, because Pythagorean's theorem works, then that makes that a triangle. So I also think of this as law of detachment is, and this is law of detachment, if a squared plus b squared equals c squared, well, this is the same thing. So there's a p, there's a p, and then if p happens, makes a right triangle, is going to be a r, well then here's our r. So law of detachment is like, I'm taking the first statement here, and I'm taking it apart. So the first half, or we say the hypothesis goes here and the conclusion goes there, then we know it's going to be true. And probably the wrong way to use the hypothesis and conclusion, but that's what they are from statement number 1. So that's law of detachment. If Lynn wants to participate in wrestling this competition, he will have to meet an extra 3 times a week of practice. If Lynn adds anything else to his weekly schedule, so both of these are adding something to his weekly schedule. So that's kind of our Q statement. So P, Q, Q, and then R. Can't take karate lessons. So P implies Q, Q implies R. What can we conclude? If Lynn wants to participate in the wrestling competition, then he can't take karate lessons. So that is law of syllogism. And this one I always think of because it applies to me too. If a children's movie is playing on Saturday, Janie will take her little sister Jill to the movie. Janie always buys Jill popcorn at the movies. So if there's a children's movie playing, they'll go. If they go, then they'll get popcorn. So if the children's movie is playing, Jill will get popcorn because they're going to go. So again, this is law of syllogism. P implies Q, Q implies R. Well, then we know if P happens, R is going to happen. A polygon is a triangle, the sum of 90. And I lost my spot in your notes. I wonder if we have this one. Yep, we do. If the polygon is a triangle, then the sum of the interior angles is 180. Polygon GHI is a triangle. So here we have this statement, GHI is true. So P is true. Well, then if P is true, then we can imply Q is going to be true. Yep. So therefore, this is law of detachment. Again, we're detaching the two statements apart, or taking them apart. One becomes true. We see it happen, and we can go from there. So, all right. So hopefully day goes well. Again, bring questions. This is kind of a tricky one that we have a lot of questions on. So feel free to let me know and ask about when we meet in class. See you then.